attend tonight. Excuse my voice.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome,
you didn't
everybody.
give us the official
Order in the court.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay, we
Chair.
need to call this meeting to order, okay? Thank you, Don. Now I got it. All right, item 2 on our agenda is our citizens' comments. It's an opportunity for the citizens to come forth and give any kind of testimony or knowledge or any complaints that they have toward, well, the city or the commission, or I guess we just pretty much let anybody have a talk, so. This is our time to do that, so if anybody is present, we will give you 3 minutes, as long as it's not part of our public hearing tonight. Wow, that's a good one, I like that, thank you. So on to number 3, our agenda item. We have to approve our last meeting minutes. That was October the 11th. I read through them, I thought Don did a great job.
Yeah, I
Thank
agree.
you, Don.
So I could move
Would you
that we
please?
approve the October 11th, 2023 minutes.
And I will second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve them as written. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Nice, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we have a public hearing tonight, and I'm gonna explain the process just a little bit. I'm gonna open the public hearing. We're gonna listen to our city staff. Joel, you're on the deck today for that. Appreciate that. We'll have the applicant's testimony afterwards. We'll have any testimony from the public. And then after that, we'll have the applicant's rebuttal. And just a reminder, after all the evidence is given, we cannot accept any more evidence. If and it does come, we may have to have another public hearing. So let's try to keep it to what we hear tonight, please. And I'll close the public hearing and then we will deliberate. We have 3 things to talk about tonight, which is kind of, we've done this before, so I know our team will be right in there. There was a lot of information and I can't wait to get started. Joel, give us your presentation, please.
So technically, there are 4 actions in front of you tonight. The order of those is annexation or not, comprehensive plan map amendment or not, zone change or not, an adjustment to the area of city impact map or not. You may not end up dealing with all of those. It depends on what you decide to do about the, well, no, you will end up having to deal with all of them no matter what. I think I'm going to start with some maps for context. So what's being displayed on the screen right now is a PDF of our geographic information system. North is up. The bolded property in the red, pretty much in the middle of that, is the property that's the subject of the public hearing tonight. That's requested to be brought into the city limits. The dashed blue line is the city limit line. And you can see that the property's not in the city limits right now. It's pretty much surrounded by city limits. The squiggly line toward the bottom is a narrow strip of land that's requested to be brought in for purposes of what would be a roadway to get to the subject property should it be annexed. To the east or to the right, you can see the end of the runways for the airport, and to the west you can see the country club neighborhood. Also to the east or to the right is the golf course. Another map basically of the same thing, but without the contours turned on. You can see the property a little bit more clearly. Here's another one with the zoning layer turned on. To the west, you've got R2 zoning and F2 zoning, and to the east, you've got the airport zone. To the north and the south, you're not seeing city zoning because to the north and to the south is not in the city; it's in the county. This is another one with this time with the. I wonder if I can utilities. No, it doesn't have the utilities turned on. Well, yeah, you can see storm sewer to the west in the Country Club neighborhood. Those are those purple lines and circles. That's city storm sewer. And then it's also got the water layer turned on. So this blue line running through the subject property here, this is a city water line running through the county or through the area city, this part of the area city impact, including the subject property. What you do not see in this with the utility layer turned on is wastewater. There is no public sewer to this property. And this one shows the 10 and the 2-foot contours turned on so you can see the topography. So the overall property, by the way, is larger than what's being requested to be annexed. The overall property is this whole thing, and it comes down here and then up.
So the dotted blue line.
It captures, so if this, and we'll talk about this more when I get into the staff report, but if this property is annexed, the bold black property, it will leave another county island of leftover of the subject property, not the subject property, but that part of the property that is, that this belongs to here, and then here, and then there's a little tiny triangular one down here that would also remain in the county. So anyway, that gives you some context. Down here, it's hard to see on this one. Let's go back up. You can see down here to the south, and it goes to the east is O'Connor Road. There you can see it a little bit better. That is the public road that would serve the property should it be annexed and developed. Okay, so let's move on from there.
Well, that red line that kind of curves, that would be the public road? Okay. Okay.
Well, no. Let me see if I can get back to that.
I was gonna say maybe somebody can't draw a straight line, but I assume not.
Guessing it's topography based.
I got the wrong one here, hold on. Not operating this very well here. So you're talking about that red line?
Yeah, I'm just talking about the red line that technically creates the island until it hits.
So if the
bigger
property is annexed, this red line would be part of the annexation, and it would, if the property is annexed and developed, serve as a roadway.
Okay.
But the applicant's intent is for it not to be a public road.
Oh, okay,
Now, where is
okay.
the Bryden Canyon Golf Course from?
It's right here,
Right there, okay, that's what I was wondering, okay.
right here. Yeah.
It abets,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
So what would be the primary access?
Well, it would be off of O'Connor Road. The public roadway would be O'Connor Road.
Okay, so that's
And
still,
that would just go to this
That kind
subdivision.
of winds around the airport and the.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And I'll talk a little bit about Connor Road during the comprehensive plan section of the staff report. Let's go back. So we'll look at some photographs. It was hard for me to take pictures of the property because it's just not very accessible. So I pretty much stayed out at O'Connor Road. This is looking north. The subject property is back up in here. This is a gravel road that goes through the applicant's property, but not that part of it that's requested for annexation. It looks like at least this part of it this would probably be, actually, this would be included in the annexation, I believe. And then extend further up into the larger area that would be annexed back up in there. There we go, let's go this way. This is just a closer picture of the same roadway. This is right now being used to access the applicant's shop, which has just been constructed over here, and he's gonna be building a house just to the east of it right here. That's all southwest of the property requested for annexation. That's another shot looking at the applicant's shop on the property. He does not want to be annexed. Enlarge this. You can see the terrain it's very rough.
Oh, now that house down there, back to that one. No, I saw a house down there. I think I know that house. Okay, all right. That house up there on the left.
That's down in the country club neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
know exactly where we're at now. The country club, the golf course is just right there.
It's
and that
just right
house
off
is-
to the right.
Yep, that's that house that they built on that scab that we approved like 3 lots or something there. 2 or 3 lots right there.
Another photo the same. This is looking up O'Connor Road, basically to the east at this point, and that's looking to the west on O'Connor Road. So this is the north side of O'Connor Road where the subject property would be accessed from. And that's what I've got for site pictures. So what I'll just leave up on the screen will be the GIS prints.
Is that little
Larger shrink.
circle in green up there, is that the building site for his personal home?
Oh, there it is. So the applicant's home is being constructed, probably best to show on the topographic one, is being constructed right in here.
Oh, gotcha, okay, thank
That's
you,
where
thank
the
you.
shop is over here, and the house will be
Okay.
built right next to it on this flat spot.
Thank you.
Yep. Whole thing. Anyway, I'll just leave that there. I'm gonna do a verbal summary of the staff report. I'm not gonna talk about the subject property and surrounding land uses section of it, because we already kind of did that when we were looking at the maps and the pictures. On page 2 of the report, starts the beginning of pages and pages of code references. I'm not gonna get into that. There are a lot of relevant code sections, Idaho code and city code. I've included in there, all the relevant sections of state and city code having to do with annexation, zoning, the various zoning districts involved, including the current county zoning of the subject property and the proposed, R1 city zoning. But I'm not gonna talk about that stuff. My primary intent is to talk about the annexation. I'm gonna jump straight to the comprehensive plan part of the staff report right now. It's on page 16. And I'm just gonna read, you've got a lot in there, but I'm just gonna read some of the, what I think are the most relevant pieces of the comprehensive plan relative to these applications. And that comes from the area city impact section of the comprehensive plan. Areas of city impact are transition areas between each city and the county and act as placeholders for future annexation and eventual urban development. They're important because they help cities and counties carry out the purposes of planning, which include protecting property rights, ensuring that adequate public services, public facilities and services are provided at a reasonable cost, and encouraging urban-type development within cities. Areas of city impact are important tools that help coordinate growth with the availability of services. Areas of city impact also help to concentrate density to those areas best prepared to receive new developments. I wanna highlight the fact that talks about urban development, adequate facilities, and concentrated densities. The reason I wanna point this out, and we'll talk about it more later, is since there is no sewer to this subject property, public sewer, it would have to be developed on septic systems, which means that the minimum lot size would be 1 acre. That's generally not, so it wouldn't have all city services, as this is part of the area city impact section of the comp plan says it should have. And 1 acre lot development, 1 dwelling unit per acre is generally not considered urban development. Upon annexation, the city envisions a future where development is fully served with utilities and infrastructure. Densities are sufficient to make efficient use of the limited area of city impact. From the transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan, got some information about O'Connor Road, which I said earlier would be the public road access to this property if it's annexed. It's identified as a local road on the city surface transportation roadway classification system with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. It hasn't been analyzed for traffic volume and capacity within the transportation chapter of the comprehensive plan, but it has been analyzed for roadway condition. And various sections of O'Connor Road are identified as having different pavement conditions, which include routine maintenance, preventative maintenance, structural improvements, that's a big one, and let it go until reconstructed. So some parts of the roadway are in pretty good condition and other parts of the roadway are not in good condition at all. There's a part of the staff report I'd like to read from. It's called Input from Other Departments and Agencies. The Lewiston Fire Marshal says about these applications that access and water supply requirements would be determined upon receipt of design drawings. Basically, it's just giving a heads up that if annexation occurs and then there's a subsequent development application for subdivision and building, they would have to meet those requirements for fire access road and fire hydrant spacing if needed and all that kind of stuff. But then he also said later, so I didn't put it in my written staff report, but I got it after I wrote it. He said, response to this site is estimated to be around 10 minutes due to the remoteness of the existing road conditions to the site. The average response time goal is 3 to 5 minutes. So the response time for the fire department to this property, if it's annexed, would be 2 to 3 times slower than what would normally be expected. We also got comments from the Nez Perce County planner. And I think some of these compliments from the county also came maybe from their GIS address person and somebody else in the assessor's office. But anyway, the county comments, they say this is not an ideal situation from a parcel configuration or an addressing E911 standpoint. We really do not want remnant parcel 1. It would be useless for anything other than mailboxes or a subdivision sign. If there is any way that could be part of the road parcel, that would be ideal. There are a couple of different approaches to deal with the rest of the property that would be left in the county. We would need to sit down and talk to Glenn about his future plans before I can advise further on them. Now, we already talked about where the applicant's home is located. That would have to be readdressed to the new road, the county says. They also say county donut polygons surrounded by the city makes it difficult for addressing a 911 response and elections. Remnant parcel 1 is approximately 0.008 acres. That's that little tiny piece at the very south end, to the southeast of the road where it comes down to the corner. This should be included as part of the annexation, probably as part of the road parcel. It is not a useful piece of property otherwise, and is the kind of thing that ends up at a tax deed sale. They go on to say that remnant parcel 2 is a steep hillside, and this configuration either creates a new parcel that doesn't meet the minimum lot size of 5 acres, or creates a parcel split by a road, which requires planning and zoning commission approval. Staff would recommend including this parcel with the annexation. Parcel 2, this triangle parcel will touch county land, so an island will not be created if it is not annexed, which it is not proposed to be. The development of this property is dependent on the McCanns, which is the property owner to the north, and would most likely need city services to be developed. So McCann's property is this piece up here. The applicant is aware that this parcel will not be of any use until it is annexed or they have an approved subdivision plat with the county. Staff is neutral on this piece of land. While remnant parcel 3 is not currently part of the annexation application, staff would note that the applicant currently has an open building permits for has open building permits for an accessory structure, that's the shop you saw in the photographs, and a single-family dwelling on this parcel. Not annexing this parcel will create another county island, but it would be preferable to the logistical difficulties of switching building permits, building inspection, and the certificate of occupancy issuance jurisdiction halfway through the process. Not sure if that read right, but, so that's the county comments. And then you've got a series of comments from our Public Works Department. Many of them are similar to what the county said, but to give myself a break, and since Public Works is here, I'm gonna let them convey their messages to you myself, or themselves.
Commissioners, good evening. Mark Wigan, the city surveyor. So as indicated in the staff report, the Public Works Department had several concerns regarding the applicant's proposal. I'll just kind of go down through and list these, and just kind of as a background, this is area of city impact, so while it is technically in the county, the city kind of has some oversight in this too. So some of these codes that we're looking at aren't, strictly county codes, they're also kind of city codes because this is the area of city impact. So firstly, the legal description that was provided for the road parcel, which will control the location for the anticipated private road access in the future city subdivision plat, does not actually utilize tangent curves, so future road plans and construction would not be able to adhere to city or industry standards. Second, because the applicant's proposed annexation configuration only comprises a piece out of the middle of their existing parcel, it will create 3 additional parcels in the area of city impact, which violates the requirement that all divisions of land within the ACI be platted. Essentially, our annexation becomes an illegal subdivision. Third, if the proposed annexation is completed, remnant parcel number 1 down in that far southeast corner, and that is that little one, would not comply with the current F2 minimum lot size of 5 acres. Fourth, the proposed annexation, if the proposed annexation is completed, parcel number 2, and that's the one clear up in the northwest corner, would essentially be landlocked and not comply with section 112.12.010 of the area of city impact code requiring all lots have approved access. Fifth, in addition, the 2 remnant parcels, 2 and 3, which are the 2 either side of the access road in the middle there, would not comply with the same section of ACI code for access following annexation. And even if the road parcel were approved as a private road per city codes during the subdivision process like they're proposing, which is not guaranteed, that is an arbitrary part of our subdivision code. The approval of private roads is something that the city council is given arbitrary approval over. But even if that is approved, technically those 2 remnant parcels cannot legally benefit from that private road since they would not be part of the subdivision that created the private road. Our ordinance specifically says that private road benefits the lots within that subdivision. And lastly, the previously mentioned creation of the 3 additional enclave city parcels will eventually result in unnecessary expenditure of time and expense by the city to complete the additional annexation actions for those additional enclave parcels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So that concludes the input that we received from other agencies and departments. I'll get into the analysis section of the staff report. We already talked about that the subject property for annexation is just a piece of the applicant's overall property. That's significant to note because if the annexation is approved, the applicant intends to file a subdivision plat to develop the property. But the city subdivision code specifies that applications for subdivision shall include the entire tract of land unless an approved preliminary plat, plan unit development, or approved development master plan shows development in phases. In this case, the applicant has indicated no desire or intent to plat the entire tract of land in phases or otherwise. Therefore, it's anticipated that the subdivision plat application that would be filed if the annexation occurs could not be approved. In addition to that, the applicant has stated intent if annexation 23-2 is approved to propose a private road. Mark just talked about that. The zoning code requires that all lots front a public street unless otherwise approved at the discretion of the city council. So there's no standards for that and no criteria. It's not been tested much, so we don't even know that the private roadway would be approved. We already talked about the additional county islands. The county islands are not preferable. They're, for a number of reasons, this particular proposal would create an additional 3 county islands. So it basically takes an existing condition and makes it worse in those terms. County islands result in lost tax base from properties outside the jurisdiction of the city, but that benefit from city street infrastructure and street systems, such as pedestrian, bicycle, and transit, because that's what surrounds them and what persons living or working at must use to get to and around town. County islands also tend to create jurisdictional confusion and problems, including fire protection, police protection, and ambulance service, as well as street addressing. The applicant's intended goals: develop subject property for subdivision and detached single-family home construction. Again, because there's no public sewer to the property, it would have to occur on septic systems, and would result in 1 acre minimum lot sizes that's required for septic systems. Septic systems can be allowed in the city, but they're certainly not a preferred sewerage method for development within city limits. And frankly, they're just not really even desirable for city development. We also talked about density. 1 acre lot size within city limits is not a common density for lot size. It's generally not considered fiscally preferable. The cost for public services for sparse development like that is much higher per dwelling unit than it is for higher density development. We're getting toward the end of the summary of the written staff report. I'll point out that if the Planning and Zoning Commission finds it appropriate to recommend the City Council approve the annexation, the associated comprehensive plan map amendment for the low-density residential designation would be an appropriate designation. That designation, though, suggests a residential development density of 5 to 8 dwelling units per acre. This property can't be developed to that density range because it doesn't have sewer, but that's the closest designation that we have in the city limits. So that's something I just wanted to point out. Also, should the Planning and Zoning Commission find it appropriate to recommend that City Council approve the comprehensive plan amendment, the associated zone change application to place the property in the suburban residential R1 zone fits the low-density residential comp plan map designation. The R1 zone generally calls for, well, it doesn't generally call for, it has a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size. And again, this property could only be developed to a 1 acre minimum lot size. So it's not that 1 acres can't fit in the R1 zone, it's just that the R1 zone is anticipated to have a higher density development than what this would end up being. I think that's the conclusion of my summary of the written staff report, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thanks, Joel.
Mr. Chairman? So it seems to me that we've addressed a lot of concerns with this development. My question is, if the whole thing were proposed to become annexed to the city, would that erase a lot of the concerns?
Probably not to my knowledge. It would address
Roadway.
the majority of the, not necessarily.
No, okay.
It would address the number of county islands issue,
Right.
and it would address the subdivision code requirement to plat the entire tract of land. It would address because it addresses the county island situation, it would also resolve the illegal lot consideration for properties left over in the county. But it doesn't solve the matter of the property not having sewer. And so the development, to my knowledge, even if the whole tract of land was included, would still have to be developed on 1 acre lots with septic systems.
So there's no way that sewer could be accommodated up into that area because of the topography?
Not public sanitary sewer, as far as I'm aware. It's not there yet. So the timing is just,
But it is possible. Could put it in.
that's all relative to how much money you have.
So if a developer decided that, and the requirement was that he be attached to city sewer, the developer would have to put that in. Is that
Correct.
what I'm hearing?
Yeah, unless the city somehow, the city doesn't generally pay to extend public services to a private property for development.
Right, exactly.
Well, I see Cynthia.
I,
has her hand up.
I,
was
I,
gonna
I
ask.
scribbled some questions, because the biggest concern for me, I know this commission has seen other development proposals or annexations where it's half and half, county with septic and woven in is city, so they could hook to the city water lines. And during those meetings, it was always my understanding that the city, not just area impact, but any city property taxable, as I understand it, we're trying to eliminate septics.
Yes.
And that's in the comprehensive plan, is to move away from septics and bring everything onto public services, public sewer, public water.
The area city impact section of the current comprehensive plan calls specifically for properties being annexed to be fully served by city services.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, and in the East Orchards, as an example, public sewer was extended because the Urban Renewal Agency was able to pay for that to help alleviate or mitigate problems associated with septic systems there. To get them off septic because it was causing problems with water, with pollution.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is for the person that wants to do this, if it would be possible, so they went and got it fully engineered and got a plat developed, a subdivision plat, there's a plan for the whole thing with sewer and stuff. It could possibly be done in the future. It could possibly, as long as we satisfy the fire, the transportation, all the things that we see as concerns here.
Correct.
So so it's currently served by the county, like for fire, if God forbid there ever was one? So the baseline is that the Lewiston Fire Department, they wanna have a response time of 3 to 5 minutes. This property, it's 10 minutes.
Yes.
So if there were a fire there now, who responds?
My understanding is it would be not the city.
Okay,
It'd be volunteer.
volunteer, so the county wouldn't cover it then? Okay,
What county fire?
well,
Oh.
right,
There's no
okay.
Okay, so for clarity, O'Connor Road is county.
O'Connor Road is, I'm gonna let Mark explain that. That's got a lot of hair on it. That's got some. What's O'Connor Road? She's asking if it's in the county and it's.
So O'Connor Road is
hybrid.
basically, the property that the airport sits on right now is joint city-county property. It's owned 50% interest by the city and the county, and it's under the Airport Authority Board control. That road technically has never been dedicated to the public, so it would kind of be what we would consider a prescriptive public easement. But because it's on public property already, we really don't have a lot of concern about, clarifying what it is in that sense. So in the strictest sense, it would be under a prescriptive public easement.
Okay, so where I was going with that is, maintenance of not only O'Connor, because anybody in this development, this future dream development, has to approach via O'Connor. And then we have a private road specific only to the annexed development. Who takes care of that?
So O'Connor Road, we do have agreements with the county for different sections of that for maintenance of it. It is maintained by public agencies. The public or the private road itself, if that was adopted as part of a subdivision plan, that would be up to what our code says is they're required to have some form of homeowners association to essentially provide for the maintenance of that. And that's one of the things that Joel talked about, that doing private streets we haven't done a lot of that. And one of the major concerns is because a lot of times what happens is those homeowners associations that are put together don't have enough funding, don't have enough, professional resources, whatever, to know when, how often, those types of things to maintain roads. And a lot of times what ends up happening is then the people that live on those then start calling the city or the county, depending on where they're at. But for our problem is, when they start calling the city and saying, hey, why aren't you plowing our road? Why aren't you maintaining our road? Why aren't we getting chip seals? And we have to basically say, it's not our responsibility because it's a private road. So, and then they start asking us to take it over anyway. And a lot of times then those private roads weren't necessarily built to a level to where they're easy to be maintained and last long enough to be a long-term road. I mean, we can do some efforts within the process to make that happen. But like I said, in the past, that's why we haven't had many of them and haven't tested that part of our ordinance very sufficiently at this point.
It ends up being a much bigger expense to the city than if it was developed to a public road standard by the developer.
Okay, okay. So I'm segueing, everybody forgive me. But when we talk about annexing, and we know that the private home, the owner of the property that he wants to annex, and then the same gentleman who doesn't want his particular home space annexed. If we were to draw the lines where he got his nice chunk of change at, let's say 5 acres or whatever he wants, and then everything else gets annexed, including the road, the pathway for the private road, could that private road then be mandated to be made a public road and built to the standard that the city would need it to be?
That would be up to the city council during the subdivision plat review. You would make a recommendation to the city council about that,
Yeah,
but they would decide if that could happen or not.
and that expense then would lie, if they approved it, would lie on the developers.
Correct. So our expense, what I said it would be more expensive, and a bigger expense to the city is if private maintenance fails
Yes.
and the city has to take it over. But it could be, a subdivision approval could be given without private road approval. They could say, okay, we'll approve your subdivision plat if you make a public road.
But only if it's an annex.
It would have to be annexed first.
Yeah.
And just to point out, if it's not annexed, the developer or the property owner could develop in the county to whatever rules they have.
True, yeah.
But we're just talking about, what makes sense for the city.
Yeah, of course, that's what we're here for. Okay.
Anyone else? Questions?
One more.
Oh,
I did
you're
some
okay.
homework.
As much as you need.
Okay, so, in looking at rural residential, which I believe it's it's farm right now.
Agricultural.
Thank you. So if we go to rural residential, that's minimum 5 acre lots.
Are you talking about comprehensive plan, land use designation, or zoning? Zoning?
Valid point, yes, never mind. That's it, that's, I guess, questions for
Different years.
the number of proposed properties. Okay. I stand down.
It's a standout, safety stand.
You did a great job.
And I'll just mention it since I'm up here. If you do want additional information about density versus public services cost and public infrastructure cost, I do have some information from a national source about that if you feel like you need it later.
And then I would note for Joel, if you do feel like you need it later, it does need to be introduced through a public
Before the
hearing.
hearing's ended.
Yeah,
May need another public hearing.
or
No,
during this, or during
it
this
can come
one.
tonight, it just needs to happen before the hearing's closed.
Okay.
So it can't be introduced later.
Okay, at this point, we can have the applicant's testimony or presentation. Welcome, Glenn. Name and address, please.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Scott Becker with Hodgin Associates in Moscow, 405 South Washington, Moscow. I'm here to represent the applicant, Glenn Seekins. He couldn't be here tonight, so apologize for that. Joel did a great job, and Mark. I just want to address a couple issues. The tiny triangle, we could easily deal with that, however you guys see fit. That's not that big a deal. The reason the roadway does that weird jog through there is that's really the only access that could be developed for a roadway without making it look like the hill, the Lewiston Hill, with those kind of fills to make a roadway. So we just thought that it would be better to follow the current access road that goes in there now for the farmland and just try to improve that, make it a better roadway. And that would be why that kind of is maybe not a perfect roadway, but it's gonna be better than if we just try to just jam something through there and make it kind of awful. So that takes that one, but it does orphan that parcel too. And it's kind of almost like, that's kind of the drainage area. The contours don't even do it real justice. It's pretty steep out there. The parcel that we want to annex into the city is really the only thing that's somewhat developable, and even that is, you go from that water line that cuts through the property and then squeeze that in, and that's really the only part that could be developed. Everything else, that triangle to the northwest, that's 150 feet below the parcel, so it's not accessible now. So we're not really cutting off accessibility to that parcel. It's currently not accessible. It's, and the landforms out here. We could try to blast and make a rock pit out there and, get it down to the right level, but essentially, we're just trying to work with what's out there and what could possibly be developed. Glenn has built his shop and is working on his house and fencing it in for agriculture right now. So that's why he really would like to keep that in the county so he could run a couple cows and not be in violation of city code or any rules like that. So I believe what we're presenting you tonight meets the intent of the code. And yes, there may be a couple variances that need to be requested to make the code, make everything wholly legitimate. But really what we've offered you, we feel is the best option to bring in some pretty serious tax revenue to the city with not much cost. Really, the only utilities that we're gaining from the city would be water. We would like to tap onto the water system. Sewer, there's just, like I said, it just slopes so hard to the south that there's really not a good connection for sewer to that property. So septic would be the best option, and these would be high-end homes, so that, you got golf courses on each side. It's not gonna be ramshackled. It's gonna be very nice homes. Like I said, very, very good tax base with a private road in there. We do plan to build that road to as good or maybe even better than city standards, just because it would be under a homeowners association, and we wouldn't want to do future maintenance, any more than just routine, chip seals, crack seals, and maintain, the ditches and keep everything in great working order. So I really don't see this as a huge, deterrent or a liability that the city's taking on, rather than the city's taking on a huge amount of benefit without a lot of risk. So I'd gladly answer any questions that you might have, and see if we can work through this.
We want to help work through it.
Yes.
We really do. Anyone have questions for Scott?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Cassie, go.
Okay, so you're proposing, this is 42 acres in this little triangle thing that we got with the corners chopped off. So are you proposing 42 home sites?
We're still kind of working on that. It's gonna be, I believe it's 20 is what we've looked at for home sites.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify, those dashed lines they're not meant to represent in any way any subdivision design or lot configuration. Yeah, it's just saying this is the subject property, that's all.
Couple utility questions, and again, I don't know if this is the appropriate. So you made a statement that the only city utility that we would be, this development or future development would touch would be water. Now, that's a pretty extensive diagonal water line.
The water line that runs through there right now, and I don't want you to step on your question, the water line that runs through there now is a 16-inch, and it's not the one that we would be tapping into. It'd be right up by the water tower is where we would access the water,
Which is
where it's that
white circle.
round
round
dot,
thing, okay.
circle up there.
And where would, given the topography and that we've got a huge dive down to that other area, where would the power be coming in, and where would the power poles, those type things, where?
The power would all be underground, and we would work with Avista to bring that in, and then the discussion of fiber or cable or.
Okay.
But yeah, those would be what we refer to as franchise utilities, and would not be at the city's cost.
So, can I ask another question? So would you consider taking this to an engineering firm and having it platted out? And would the person that's doing the little farm ground right there consider, I know that his taxes would be higher if it were annexed into the city, but I just think that would make a lot more sense, and you would get rid of a lot of those problems down in that southern part of the country.
Well, and I apologize, I am a professional engineer, so
Oh, okay.
that's what our firm does. And so we have looked at that, but that parcel to the south, there's such a minor area that's developable.
But it's just a little bench, I see.
Yeah, and really it becomes a maintenance nightmare if you were to split that off into 2 or 3 homes, would be about the most you could hope for. And then you've got all that other area, and you'd be within the city, so you couldn't really maintain it with animals like he's hoping to right now.
Chairman,
Yeah.
if I could just clarify, so the piece that you're asking about is the applicant's property?
Absolutely.
Okay, just to clarify that. And so that would remain in the county, but if it did come into the city, the R1 zoning that we're thinking about for the property that is requested for annexation does allow livestock by right. So the applicant would still be able to do that.
So that he could still be within city limits and have that section of land like he wants, whatever that acreage is. Was that about 30, 40 acres down there too?
Yeah, I think it was 40-something.
So that 40 acres could still be within the city limits. And that could be developed into 20 home sites or so.
No, it couldn't. That's what I'm saying. The area that it's a huge area, but the area that would be buildable is.
Well,
She's
no,
talking about
no,
the upper-
the north, the middle section that he wants to build home sites. So his,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the bottom part, he could keep, but it could be, if it were in city limits, if he were willing to have that annexed into the city and keep it like that, but make a public road there and have that road access that 20-unit area up there, that parcel, and that all becomes part of the city.
Yeah.
That part north, I think that's kind of irrelevant from what I understood. Is that correct? That,
Depends on your perspective.
okay, well, tell me what the perspective was again.
Code,
Well,
yeah, for starters.
Yeah,
well, the part that, yeah,
the third part up there.
Right, you got that.
That little
the
triangle.
at
the
the
triangle,
top.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's
Oh,
part
that's more,
of,
yeah.
that's part of what the city code refers to as the overall tract of land,
right.
which is supposed to,
Oh, they're
be
supposed to
included
do
in
the
the-
whole the
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
tract. Okay, so assuming then this person would do the whole
Yeah.
tract of land, okay, let's look at it that way. Whole tract of land, keep that like that, have that a public road, go into that area, that's
Mhm.
maybe phase 3 or somewhere in the future.
It can't be developed.
It can't be developed because of it looks pretty ugly, but whatever. But it becomes part of the city. You pay a little bit of property tax on it to the city.
And there's just, for the applicants, I'm just representing him, this is not my opinion in any way. He just does not have any desire to bring that parcel into the city. He would like to keep that into the county for various reasons.
Yeah, so it looks to me like our code, that could be a problem. It'd be a lot easier for maybe us to deal with it if he were willing to do that. Maybe, I'm not sure.
well, I think Joel, you had mentioned it, that the way it's structured now, a plat can't be approved.
Right.
Like, literally can't be approved, right? Or,
a strict reading of the code appears to lead to that conclusion. Yes, do you concur?
I think there's a question, once we do the annexation, whether the annexation then creates new lots. Because theoretically, once the annexation occurs, there has to be lot lines drawn for what's in the city and what's in the county. But like I said, that then we're doing an illegal subdivision in order to do that.
right,
So-
and that's,
So we break the law
So-
to get to that point to begin with,
I have
so,
another
I mean,
question.
one way or another, I think we're causing a problem.
So if he went to the county and said, or to the tax person, commission, or the county planning and zoning, and said, I wanna cut that off, make that a separate tract, and divide that into 2 separate tracts, and, that takes some time to do that, then maybe, but what is that?
That would be an option too. I guess it's getting to the same place, circumventing. We just thought it would make more sense if we came in and were upfront with you from the beginning. And really, as far as, the code, like I said, it meets the intent of the code, in my opinion. But the code is kind of, you don't want a parcel that, you want a road going through a parcel, going to the next parcel, to the next parcel, to the next parcel. Well, this hits O'Connor Road and there's nowhere else to go. I mean, that's the end of the line, because you're at the runway and you can't cut through that, or you drop off the edge to everything along the Snake River, so.
I just wanted to note too, I know there was discussion about the application of the code to different aspects that were pointed out by city staff and others, and that there was mention about granting a variance. And I just wanted to make sure to remind the commission that a variance may only be considered for modification of requirements regarding lot size, lot coverage, width, depth, front yard, side yard, rear yard, setbacks, and parking spaces, height of buildings, and other ordinance provisions affecting the size and shape of a structure or the placement of the structure upon the lot or the lot sizes. So a variance wouldn't be appropriate for other provisions of city code unless it was specifically provided for in city code that alterations to those requirements could be made such as if there was some kind of PUD or something to that effect that affects the development of the property.
And isn't one of the criteria of that it cannot be created by the applicant's own actions? Or am I thinking of
Yes,
something
no,
else?
that is correct, and it cannot be, there's more to it,
Right,
but,
okay.
That's one of them.
that's the primary, so
Okay.
when people talk about variance, sometimes they talk about other criteria, and that's not the appropriate use of the term variance, so. And then, because there are contested facts, being pointed out, I'd just like the commission to be sure to ask all the questions they could, because, these contested facts will need to be addressed in your deliberations.
I would like to, since stormwater is a huge hot button topic right now, one of the concerns I heard was very much about the stormwater situation. And because of the topography in that particular area, I have a lot of concerns about the stormwater from that property affecting the properties below it from a topographical aspect.
Right, and we can, like I said, as an engineer, we can deal with the stormwater to retain it all on site. These are very large lots, so they would be easy to, retain the stormwater along the roadway and for the homes themselves. We also have the stormwater running into it that would cross that road, that roadway will actually help control some of the off-site stormwater too, to help protect anything downstream. But yeah, all the stormwater on site, we should have no problem with dealing with that, to retain it and make sure none of it runs off.
Okay, to piggyback onto that, drawn from a previous, I think it was a PUD where non-buildable topography, so those banks, actually housed stormwater, was it storage or it was, it routed the waters to those unbuildable areas. Is that is any of that something the unbuildable little weird north triangle could hold, or?
I don't believe that's the best way to deal with the stormwater. I think that the closer we can keep it to its origin, the better. If we start storing it in a specific spot, there's a chance for failure of a pond or something like that. But if we can keep it, each home's stormwater on each lot, the road stormwater in the ditches with different various pit run and things to infiltrate the water. I think we're gonna be better served to try to deal with the stormwater, more micromanage it than try to macromanage it.
Okay.
One question. How rocky is it up there?
It depends. You see the rock outcroppings, where Glenn has built his house, there was 12 feet of topsoil, so.
12 feet of topsoil there.
Right there.
So is there gonna be any problem with that perking? Septic?
From what we've discovered so far, there should be no problem with it. Obviously, any rain that hits those rock outcroppings is gonna continue to run off as it does today. But anything on site where homes would be built, that would all be diverted to a spot on each lot to deal with. And I don't anticipate any problem with the perking of the stormwater or the sewers. The sewers cannot be constructed until each lot has been specifically tested by the health department.
So I to assume that the intention, from a development standpoint, is for septic?
Yes.
Is there a particular reason why, design-wise, you have not one, not two, but 3 islands created in there? I mean, I kinda get the top corner one,
Okay.
but it just seems like it doesn't make a lot of sense to
One
leave
next
that
to
secondary
Yeah,
island.
that second one by Bryden, that just is a natural, the roadway is existing now and we're just trying to improve what's existing now rather than create a new roadway. So that is an island, naturally out there right now.
Not as far as city limits go, so.
Because there's an existing culvert out there, and like I said, we were gonna replace the culvert and just try to improve that roadway that gets up to that other parcel.
Okay, so water lines. And again, you said that that's only a 16-footer or a 16-incher going,
Yep.
going diagonal, literally across the top of that entire section. And you said you're gonna be bringing in, you're connecting to something else somewhere nearby, not
So
that.
there's a booster, Pat can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a booster up there by the tank that boosts the water for the golf course.
Okay.
And then we would tie into that and loop it back into that system.
Okay, but development over the top of like, don't most of our water lines run along a road line so we can access them when they, okay? So whatever design and buildings and homes that go in there cannot be built over the top of that, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And you would be accessing the same water lines and sources that feed the golf course?
Essentially. Right now, like I said, there's a 16-inch water line in there that the easement describing it does not put it in the right spot. So that would all be cleared up with the plating process. And then upon that, the city would have an access to maintain that water line that's fairly difficult to get to right now.
So this fire truck question, he said that it would still take 10 minutes for a fire truck to get there. Is there, you can't see any way around that?
I don't see any way, if the developers to the north were to create something that had an access that maybe it could connect, but I just don't see that happening. So yeah, there would be a delay. I guess I don't think of it the same way. I live in a rural area and 10 minutes would be awesome. Because I'm on the fire department and I know I have to get out of bed, go to town, get the truck, and then go somewhere else. So yeah, that's.
Okay, no, this isn't relevant to this particular annexation. But in future, if McCann wants to develop, he can't use your private road.
Right.
Which means, does anybody in the city know whether that particular chunk of change would have access points available to it on the north end, or?
Yes,
Yes, okay, thank you.
that's where the sewer would have to come from as well.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yep, so that's really the only feasible way, to my knowledge, that public sewer could get to this property is through McCann's property up by Valley Vista.
Right.
So, it's, a long ways away.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this breaks the other way, so
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that would work in the future.
And Joel, you had mentioned public utility costs, the costs of running.
May I? Sure. Yeah, and so I've got, this is prepared by Smart Growth America. It's called Rationale for Smart Growth Fiscal Impact Analysis. And I'll just read parts of it, if I may.
Yeah. Sorry, I've interrupted you.
No, you're.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and Scott will have a chance to respond to all this. Based on the largest study of its kind, researchers shows that as residential density decreases, cost per residential unit increase for roadways and other transportation, sewerage, trash collection, housing and community development, police protection, fire protection, parks, education, and libraries. These findings are consistent with literature spanning decades. And then they talk about fire stations. Studies show that when homes are built far from stations, especially when they're built on dead-end streets or cul-de-sacs, which this would be, the costs rise. The reason is that the community must provide more stations, equipment, and personnel to maintain adequate coverage at acceptable levels of response. Wastewater, stormwater, and domestic, sometimes called potable water costs, also vary by density. The the relationship between total water consumption and lot size, in this case for Albuquerque, New Mexico. As lot size increases to about 1/2 acre, water consumption and implicitly cost per home also increase before leveling off. There's a table 1.3 in this document that illustrates capital cost per housing unit by development pattern. And so, for example, 1 acre, one dwelling unit per acre, as this would be, developed contiguous to adjacent similar development. The capital cost per housing unit is 8.36. I'm not sure what that is in terms of hundreds, thousands, whatever. But when there's sewer, and you're doing it at 5 units per acre, which is what a typical R1 zone would be developed at, it's 4.27, so it's half. So this type of development is twice the capital cost as urban type development. Large-scale, single-use, large lot residential developments require costly and redundant municipal infrastructure. There's just all kinds of stuff in here. It costs more to provide services to large lot, single-family home development.
I'm curious, would these people have, because they're 2 acre lots, it sounds like to me, or around there, would they have animal rights then?
There would be 1 acre minimum lots most likely. They wouldn't have to be, they could be larger. And yes, they would have animal rights,
And so.
by zoning
would they-
code anyway.
Would they use city water to water this little 2 acre plot?
That would be up to them. They have access to it, so they could do that. I don't know if they would be allowed to drill wells. I think they might be able to drill wells. Mark, do you know about that?
Not entirely sure whether they,
If it was in the city?
that the groundwater moratorium doesn't extend that far,
I
so
don't
I
think-
think they could.
Yeah, I think they would have the option to drill a well if they wanted to.
Interesting. I'm thinking of, well, I want a 2 acre plot.
The city.
Any other questions for Joel?
Are there any other questions we should be asking?
Mr. Becker?
No, last one, and it's again,
I just did by verbal reference.
If the property owner first went in and had the county redefine the
The lot lines?
yeah, like divided that prior to coming to this commission. So,
It's 2 tracks, I get what you're saying.
yeah, so instead of a solid 86 acres, maybe he splits it to 243s. Would that change anything about, like if he squared it off and just turned it into a flag, it would look like a flag lot. Do you see what I'm saying? We come up from the bottom and then we take that other corner and the whole. I mean, if he redefined the lines, would it change anything whatsoever about?
No.
Okay, thank you.
That would just change the tax parcel configuration as far as the tax assessor's office is concerned. It would change nothing relative to this application and what he wants to do and how he wants to do it.
Except that it would in fact be defining quote unquote the entire lot and not just this.
You wouldn't have, you're saying you wouldn't have islands?
No.
Yeah.
Tax parcel numbers and configuration do not bear any relationship to the tract of land considered by the city subdivision code. It's all under the same ownership and it's all adjacent to each other, even if they're separate tax parcels, it's considered one tract of land as far as the city looks at, the way we look at it.
Thank you, thank you.
I was confused on that too.
But I guess getting back to her point, if it were sold to somebody else, so there was 2 owners.
Yep.
Would that,
That would be subdivision. And so that wouldn't just be changing tax parcel configuration and numbers. If there was a subdivision done in the county, then that could change that situation, yes.
Okay.
thank you for the clarification, I appreciate that. Just to touch back on the cost of, large lot versus small lot. Most of the cost is shouldered by the developer at the head end. Yeah, there is some maintenance in the future, but that's, it's all being paid for. Your water department has to, charge enough that it pays for, that they can't take anything else into somebody else's budget. So the water department has to be self-sufficient. So I'm sure, the gallon of water is gonna cost the same for somebody using a large amount or a smaller amount. Unless you guys have that on a sliding scale, but I don't
Okay.
doubt it.
Do you have a developer in mind yet for the proposed housing area
Right now, the owner is thinking of developing it, yeah.
itself?
Yeah. As far as contractors, it would probably be, I don't wanna venture to guess or step on anybody's toes.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right, group, our team. Let's see, any other rebuttal? I guess we don't have anything from the audience. Oh, we do.
I do.
Yay, thank you.
I do have a public comment that came in as a voicemail. I'm going to play it for you guys. Please let me know if you can't hear it.
Hi, my name is Tucker Crenshaw, and I live at 126 Highway Drive. I was calling just to leave that voicemail message about my. Start. Hi, my name is Tucker Crenshaw, and I live at 126 Highway Drive. And I was calling just to leave that voicemail message about my opposition of the land use applications. That's ANX 23-22 or 23-2, CPA 23-3, CNC 23-4 by Glenn Seekins. I'm opposed to it because I don't want the additional that traffic and congestion that could possibly bring into my neighborhood and my street. And also, there's nothing that talks about like what they would do for additional traffic or where roads would go with all those additional housing that would be put in that area. So I'm totally against the use of that permit. So you can just note my case. I'm opposed to what they're wanting done. Great, thank you. Bye.
Halo Drive?
I guess I heard that he,
You want me to read it?
I think I understood, he just
He's
opposes.
opposed.
the
He's
whole thing
opposed.
Due to traffic.
Yeah, and his
I
neighbor.
heard traffic.
But yeah, to recap, as I understand what the caller was, is he was very concerned about that they aren't addressing traffic. Now, the only thing that confuses me about his traffic concerns is exactly where the Halo Drive that he lives on is, because if he's thinking they're coming up from Seaport or anything down below it, that's not possible. So he's very concerned about no traffic assessment or additional on O'Connor. I'm unclear.
So do we know where he where his property is located?
I think he did address it. I don't know.
He said something Halo Drive, or maybe Shiloh.
He probably meant Shiloh.
Shiloh.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I may.
please, Joe.
Typically, traffic is not a consideration at an annexation request.
Gotcha.
It's addressed at the development stage if annexation occurs. So traffic is addressed at the subdivision stage if annexation occurs.
Yes, I had one more concern was about O'Connor Road. When you were talking about O'Connor Road, it sounds like part of it is in good condition and parts of it are not in very good condition. And that would be the main access to this place. Who would be responsible for getting that road up to speed?
It sounds like combination county and
Both.
city. What do you-
Yeah.
That's correct. Like Mark explained earlier, there are agreements between the city and the county, and we each maintain different sections of it. So it'd be a shared responsibility between the county and the city under the current agreement status.
And one last weird thing, this is part of the airport overlay zone, correct?
Parts of this property are in one, I believe, of the airport overlay zones. But I looked at that, and should annexation occur, the particular airport overlay zone that covers part of this property would not preclude single-family residential development.
Okay, thank you.
So it would still be okay.
According to the
In the
airport
overlay
overlay zone, as far as that piece of it goes, yes.
Criteria.
Any other questions? Last call.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Applicant's representative has a chance to rebut the voicemail message that opposed it if.
Perfect. All back.
I don't have much of a rebuttal, but I guess if part of this was annexed in the city and the other part was left in the county, then those taxes would help improve O'Connor.
All right, well, I'm gonna close the public hearing, man. Thanks, everyone, for putting in your testimony tonight. All right, we have our team here. We're gonna look at some criteria. And I am going to say that we first do the annexation. This is the one that's, I think, the most important for us to do. And there aren't really any questions or criteria that handle an annexation. Jennifer?
There is criteria.
Oh, good, thank you.
Is that the 4 questions or 5 questions?
It's either, where we got 4 and 5.
Well, so the first things you have to determine is what category of annexation this is. And a category A annexation is where all private landowners have consented to the annexation. Here there's one property owner, so that it would likely fall under that. There's a second one where any residential enclave land of less than 100 privately owned parcels, irrespective of surface area, which are surrounded on all sides by land within a city or which are bounded on all sides by lands within a city and by the boundary of the city's area of impact, or the lands are those for which owner approval must be given pursuant to subsection 5A5 of this section, which that one has a bunch of other standards, which I think were in the staff report. But in addition to that, so that would be your first determination, that this is in fact a category A annexation, and that it meets, the proposed annexation meets those requirements. And upon determining that, you may initiate planning and zoning procedures, but I would point out that the city code in the staff report, sorry, my pages are all over the place, on, it looks like page 16. It starts about the ACI, but on page 17, where it says goal statement, what part of the goal, it lists different goals, and then right below it, it says upon annexation, the city envisions a future where. I would opine that those are different criteria that the council would want to consider as far as whether or not annexation furthers those goals.
Also, maybe go through each one of those. Yeah, individually.
Especially considering, you know, the contested facts that have been presented to the commission.
So our first thing we have to figure out, is it a category A annexation? It sounds like it is to me.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Now we've got that established. Now we need to go through these, let's look at these four questions here.
This is page
So the
17.
goal was to plan for and manage growth that protects property rights, ensures adequate public facilities and services at reasonable costs. Okay, so so number one, the development is fully served with utilities and infrastructure.
And it is
I'm
not.
not sure I
No,
agree with
I
that
don't
statement.
think
It
so.
is partially, but not fully. So I'm gonna put that a strike against it right there.
And then can you please describe the facts that
Why?
you are basing that decision upon?
Who wants to give that a shot? Or
I would be willing to, I
let's,
mean,
let's give it your best. And we can all go around and do the same thing.
as it has been addressed, the utilities, obviously with it having to be reliant upon a septic system, that is not proper infrastructure and utility, as well as it being on a private road. I think those are the two primary limitations that this
Something to add.
To follow it up on, as far as utilities and infrastructure, would that also include the fire response? The city's
I think it should. I think,
I don't know if it's technically,
Maybe not
no.
there.
So we're talking infrastructure simply being roads, sewer, power, and water.
Yeah, not services.
most likely, yes.
May I point something out?
Yes, sir.
It's not listed in the one through, here, but above it in the goal statement, it does reference managing, to plan for and manage growth that, and then it says, ensures adequate services are provided.
So it doesn't.
At reasonable costs.
Yes.
There the fire. would
There the
be-
fire.
Would be addressed because.
Just point, if that's your feeling, is that the fire protection being 2 to 3 times longer service, if that falls within that, that's up to you.
I think if I were to buy a higher end 2-acre lot home, God forbid a fire, I think that those services, I want the 3 minutes, I want the 3 to 5 minutes. So I think that it should be included in the consideration of the first question, fully served with utilities and infrastructure. That would be my argument for including the delayed fire response.
I mean, I think that's partially a broader discussion as more developments come online and the city expands further outward. That's neither here nor there for this discussion.
But yeah, I agree.
But I take a little bit of a broader view of utilities and infrastructure, and where it says envisions a future where that development also has to serve other developments, and cost to the taxpayer is a cost to other developments, not just that one. So I agree with you, Cynthia. I just think I get there through a different way. I think that 5 to 10 minutes, if you live in a rural area and you're in the county and you're further out, that's maybe a little bit more understood. I think if you're in a city, which is by definition a little bit denser, then it becomes more of a concern, because you should have more access to services and the services should be able to get to you quicker. But that's just my take on it.
All right, let's move along. Talk about densities and how to make them efficient. Spreading utility costs and appealing to market conditions.
What's ACI?
Area of city impact.
Oh,
So these statements that you're looking at from the staff report on page 17 are excerpts of the area city impact section of the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so
I think that Joel's report that he cited, and I don't know what that report was.
That's the rationale for smart growth fiscal impact analysis dated June 2022.
It's, according to that report, the density, if you only have one house every 2 acres, you're not making efficient use of costs. the cost for public services are gonna be much higher, according to what Joel has presented to us.
Right, and I think future uses will also cost taxpayers money as well, so I guess if we're looking at what's good in the long run versus what's good for the owner,
Yeah.
it is his property. All right, this next one, where terrain permits, the existing road grid and circulation system is extended, including implementation of a long-range transportation plan. I guess we're just hoping that Mr. McCann is gonna help us out in the end. I know that's normally what happens, something happens, and then next door neighbors also include themselves into the procedure, so
That's a
I
big
don't know if
crystal
we're
ball.
gaining any land or gaining any ground there.
Yeah, if I may, it may be a little premature to be able to come to a conclusion on that one because you haven't seen a subdivision plat application
No.
yet to come to that, to know that.
Yeah.
No.
But I would ask the commission, if I may, Mr. Chairman, because in the top paragraph on page 17, where it's also talking about areas of city impact as transition areas, being important to help cities and counties carry out the purposes of planning. And it ends with, and encouraging urban-type development within cities. So I'm curious to know if the Planning and Zoning Commission thinks that 1 acre lots on septic systems is urban development.
No, I mean, no, be honest, no, not for this type of property.
Yeah.
Well, and especially where the option is, to put wells. That is what I would consider rural, not urban.
Because,
Well, because, I mean, if by definition an urban is hooked up to city services and they have basically the option of routing around public services, both in the septic system and rather than being on public sewer, and then also having the option to go with water that is not necessarily provided as a public service, that really creates the ability to have an autonomous property.
Follow-up question? And is service by a private road included in your mind as urban development or not?
No,
Generally
Yeah,
not.
it would not be made public.
I think service by a public road also can get into fully served with utilities and infrastructure. I think that could even loop back into one, and then that gets into taxpayer expense and fully spreading the benefits to, I mean, I consider a city part of market conditions. And so if that cost is being consolidated among the rest of the city more so than maybe originally intended, that's not appealing to market conditions. So I sort of feel like all these things honestly touch on each other to a degree.
My take is I think the developer's trying to make this work, and in the future, is it possible to get hooked up with sewer after you've been septic? I mean, obviously, if it fails, you would have to be on a city sewer system. So in the future, that could happen, I suppose. That's something to look at. Maybe not right now, but.
Yeah, I would,
That's a good concern. And we never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So the existing road grid and circulation system is extended, including implementation long range.
but I think if we talk about the potential long-term to jump from septic over to sewer, the discussion already was it would be coming a long way across that north, that
Right,
north,
that is Vista
Yeah.
Avenue.
maybe one day development.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someday.
Because it's not coming under the runways or. Where's the access to
Oh, yeah.
O'Connor Road? Where is that?
That's all the way over by where you turn right there next
I
to,
think it's 6th or 7th Street.
yeah, it's like, it's Fourth
Ye-
Street.
Right, yeah.
You turn there at the end of what used to be the ball field.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
So-
Connor jumps off there?
Yeah,
Yep, yeah,
and that's the road that goes past the airport, past all the private
yeah.
Sunshine disposal.
sunshine disposal, all of that.
So
Takes you
that's gonna,
to the public golf course.
Let's go this way. Yeah. So it's a long, it's a long windy road.
okay, so we have Brighton.
Yep.
I turn those there's too much stuff turned on.
So if I were gonna go to FedEx or the airport,
Other side,
no,
other side.
other
I'm
side.
gonna go.
Yeah.
I feel like I
Golf
need to
course.
go up and do a Vanna White.
Yeah. I'm not gonna object.
There it is.
Obviously, I'm
Would you
not
like me
Cruz
to turn the
O'Connor.
letters? So it takes off here down by the,
Okay, so here's O'Connor Road.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
O'Connor's down there,
Oh.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm just trying to get my bearings.
so, so it wraps around, and so you have two options, you can go around the backside or you can come around the
Those are
front
right
side.
there.
The storage units are right in front.
Right. That's
Up at the
story.
top.
you're
Alright, so
coming
this is
around.
this is the storage units here.
Yeah.
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 As soon as you get to
Yeah.
the top, you make a right and you wrap around the storage units.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you
oh,
come
here.
around,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
and
yeah,
There's the golf course.
yeah,
And then there's the
Come.
experimental hangar
yeah.
here.
Coming around, there we go.
And then around and around and then down
to here.
to
Oh,
boom.
Then
wow.
you-
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And this
And-
pops out where?
and the other way, yeah.
Oh, well,
That goes all the way down below,
to the
past
camera
where
area.
CCI has theirs and the Department of Corrections has theirs.
Okay, and there's a boat, yeah.
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 Right.
Okay, thank you.
Industrial.
There's no short way.
No, there's
Well,
not with that road.
yet.
And this is basically where sewer would have to come from.
Okay,
don't know if
thank
they-
you, and that's that
He said he
really
can't,
steep new
Yeah,
development
because-
coming off at Eighth, I think, right? Okay,
that it goes the wrong way. It would be going,
Topographically though,
it doesn't work.
oh, coming off at Eighth?
Probably pumps would have to be involved, but
Okay.
That's-
lift stations.
it would not be very practical.
So another question, again, trying to keep things on track here.
Forgive me.
Number 4 is residential areas will be walkable. So does the commission consider 1 acre lots with a private roadway a walkable environment?
Have to see the subdivision map.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to, it's kind of long-term, I'd have to see the actual subdivision plans. That strikes me as a little bit of subdivision-y
Okay.
in terms of that's kind of in the details.
Yeah.
So we'd never get a look at that until we annex it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
And you saw the subdivision, if that's what you needed to make that determination, yep. And then the last one was ravines will be preserved by transferring densities to the most developable portions of the land.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yes,
That one it meets.
Yes.
Even with the road.
That's basically all that,
Because
because,
As I understand it, the existing road already follows along the topography of the lot, which is why we have a weird little jiggy bit. Put that in your notes. And
Quote, jiggy bit.
jiggy bit.
Means they really know we focused on it.
And so it's not going to encroach on any ravines, more so than it currently.
May I add something to that?
okay,
Yes.
one
Just-
more time.
The applicant's proposal did not include the ravines. The annexation itself was inherent to the most developable part of the property, the flattest parts, and the steep cliffs and the ravines were left out of the annexation
There we
request.
go. Okay, so it excludes those, so they will remain intact.
Any other
That's not my car.
questions? Any other comments? Anything else we can put together to approve or deny this at this point?
So, this is a question for Jen. So the annexation is a straight up yes or no to an annex? There can't be conditions on it to approve or anything like that? Okay.
But the city council does have to have the final approval,
Right.
so they'll be able to ask.
Yeah, okay.
So here we are. I think I've heard everything. Is there a motion to approve this annexation?
I'll make a counter motion.
Okay. What do you propose, Gabe?
Well, I mean, based on the discussion around this annexation, to me, it doesn't seem like it fits. And I believe this is a balancing test for an annexation.
It's discretionary, it's a
Discretionary.
legislative matter for the commission and the city.
So, I mean, to me, it doesn't fit the criteria to be annexed into the city based on the discussion that we've had. So I would deny the annexation, but that's just me, so.
Anyone else care to make a motion to approve this annexation?
I think, the motion can be whatever anyone wants, it doesn't have to be anything in particular.
So would you like to translate that into a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to
Okay.
make a motion to deny this annexation based on the criteria that we have discussed. I mean, obviously based on my own personal thoughts, but also that it does not fit the criteria for an annexation into the city at this time.
And Mr. Chair, just a clarification for the record, that would be a motion to recommend
Oh, thank
the
you.
city council deny.
I will make that motion to recommend to the city council that we deny this annexation based on the criteria that we have discussed
Okay. Motion before
at this
us.
time, yep.
Do I hear a second to Gabe's motion?
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we send to the city council with the idea that we do not approve of this annexation. All those in favor of Gabe's motion say aye,
I
and those opposed, nay. Nay on that. A no vote is a yes vote.
I know. Struggling with it as it stands now. So I'm gonna have to go with Gabe on this.
Right, so I believe I was the only nay, so let's go ahead and send this to the city council with a non-approval rating. I think that's the first time we've ever done that, so that is a pretty good milestone. So do we even need to discuss the rest of it? I mean, do we still, we don't, once we've denied the annexation, we're done with the comprehensive
Yeah,
plan
I
amendment?
mean, if you needed to say anything, it's just, I mean, to me, they become irrelevant.
Right.
But if you wanted to, for the record, just solidify with you also recommend that they deny the comprehensive plan map amendment and they deny the zone change because the property wouldn't be in the city, so they wouldn't be applicable.
So let's look at that next,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
And if you would like to incorporate all three of those into one motion, you could.
We can do that.
And to clarify, it would be the comprehensive plan amendment, which is CPA 23-3. It would be the zoning of the property, which is ZNC 23-4. And then it would be the, I guess, recommended denial of the associated area of city impact map amendment. Those are the three remaining
Issues at hand.
issues
I think I
outstanding.
can do that.
Can you make that motion, please,
I
Kathy?
think so.
All right,
Before you do,
Okay.
is it possible to say should those come back to this body with modifications to the original annex request, or with a revised annex request, or no?
Well, no, I
It would
I
come
was,
back anyway.
It would, that would just
Yeah.
come, these would come back up
Yeah.
again.
And the city council could recommend that, the applicant submit a different application and then have another hearing on it, at
Where
which
those would be
time
considered.
the commissioners would reevaluate the application. It could potentially change their decision at that time.
Okay, yeah, because I would like to see it again.
right, I mean, I don't wanna just deny deny something and be like, oh, tough. I mean, whether it's us or the city council who's maybe giving feedback on why it wasn't recommended or why it was denied, I think that's where I'm coming from in terms of, I just don't want a flat no,
many.
and then it's like, go figure it out on your own kind
We
of
can,
thing.
So-
and I don't think the landowner is gonna go crawl away, he's gonna come back to the table with some more proposals.
I'm just thinking, could those three be tabled until such time the city council, no, you can't do that?
No, we gotta decide
No,
on it.
because they have to be pursuant to
Okay.
this particular
I
application.
all
wanna
the
make a
evidence.
motion that we do not recommend approval of CPA 23-3 to the city council. In addition, to direct staff, we don't recommend approval of zone change 23-4 to city council, and we don't recommend approval of the associated area of city impact map amendment to city council.
I think you crossed all the i's and
I
dotted
just
the
read it.
t's. I believe Dave's
I will
seconded that
second
one.
that.
It's been moved and seconded that we wrap it all up, just the way Kathy said it.
Right.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, that carries. And we do hope we see the landowner again.
I would like to see it done.
Thank you.
I would like to see it worked out.
Yeah.
All right, the
And
next
Too many
item,
problems right now.
Just to note, I will end up drafting findings of facts and conclusions of law, for that, because that typically tends to be the appropriate action with, denials of annexations. So that will come before you the next meeting.
What was your vote?
was on this one,
Yeah,
it was a yay.
okay. Just wanna
I
make sure.
vote to deny
Okay.
all the others. All right, the next item on our agenda is C, and this one's kind of a sad one because, Gabe recommended the guy, seemed like a great guy, just didn't seem to work out. I would certainly recommend the removal of Commissioner Justin Merkin, just because of his absenteeism. I think his heart was in the right place, I just don't think he was motivated enough to show up and the rest of us. So this is an action item. All those in favor of removing Justin, do we need a motion?
Yep.
I would make a motion that we go ahead and tell Justin that we're glad he was here, but we're sorry he's gone. Would anybody like to second that kind of a haphazardly?
I would second that motion to
So the
release.
motion is that we all
Mr. Justin.
agree to terminate Justin. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, how do we do that? We just send him a letter and tell him that we're,
We move it forward to the city council.
oh, the
Yeah,
city council must go.
I've gotta
Okay,
take it to
very
city
good.
council next, and, yep.
All right, very good.
Your part's
Brings
done.
us to item 4, staff communications, query of commissioners for the next meeting. Joel, is there any other staff communications you'd like to communicate?
I'll just mention that our latest public outreach and engagement for the comprehensive plan rewrite turned out to be a pretty good success. We had a station set up at the library. We did an open house last Wednesday. We left it open all week, just took it down right before this meeting and got a lot of good public input. So just to keep you in the loop on that, the consultant will start drafting goals and policies next, and we'll probably start bringing those to you to look at in December, I'm thinking. And that's all I've got. other than wanting to hear about your ability to attend the November 8th meeting, and then I want to ask you another attendance question after that.
Show of hands, November 8th is good for everybody. I'm hoping Kevin will be here too, so it looks like we're all gonna be present.
Okay, and then normally we cancel our second meeting in November because of proximity to Thanksgiving, which this year is the day before Thanksgiving. But we do have 2 applications that we want to schedule for hearing. I don't know that the applicants can attend the night before Thanksgiving, but I wanted to at least ask you if you could attend the night before Thanksgiving. So if we can get a quorum and the applicants can show up, we would do that.
I will not be here.
I will not be here the day.
I'm up
I
in the
would,
air
I
still.
will.
You
We
will
don't
be here?
have solid
Yeah,
travel
I will.
plans, it depends on
I
whether or
will be
not
in
my
town.
son-in-law's getting deployed.
Supposed to be scheduling a surgery around there somewhere, but I don't know.
No, but who, was it no Mike?
I'm not gonna be able to make it the day before
And-
Thanksgiving.
And Kathy's out.
And then Kathy's out as well.
So Cindy's a maybe.
And I'm a maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That leads us to the last bit of business.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate that. I will
You didn't
second
pause
that
at all.
I don't
motion.
know if I'd take her serious, she was winking at you the
Yeah,
whole
she
time.
did. Well, I'm hoping we did.
Did anybody second it?
I did.
Oh,
I
good.
personally seconded that. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stick around? Say aye. All right, that motion carries.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeff.